Let me give you that. I know in my case,
Is your money dirty money?
If you live,
I just asked a question. Is your money dirty money?
No, it's not. So, in fact,
why is it not dirty money?
Because I earned it,
But you earned it.
I earned it legally.
We went back to this before. You earned
Yes.
it. You earned it, advising the worst people in the world, right? That do enormous bad things, and just to make more money. Money came from them. What percentage of people do you estimate? I understand you don't like probabilities. Do you estimate would say, "I don't care. I want the money for my children"?
I would say everyone said, "I want the money for my children."
Did they know where the money came from?
I think if you told them,
if I told them
the devil,
100%.
the devil
himself.
The devil himself said, "I'm going to exchange some dollars for your child's life."
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question. Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
What was the name of any of the underage minors that were the subject of the criminal charges to which you pled guilty?
On the morning of September 17th, 2025, the gates of Zenda prison in northern Germany opened for the last time for the man German prosecutors believe killed a 3-year-old girl. There was no trial, no conviction, no justice for what he allegedly did in Portugal 18 years ago. Just a black Audi with tinted windows, a police escort for formality, and a gray German morning that swallowed him whole. Today, that man lives in a forest in northern Germany with an electronic ankle bracelet. He has never been charged with anything connected to this case. And in February of 2026, he sent a message through his attorney, a message that made German investigators stop cold. He claimed to have information that would expose what he himself called the scandal of the century. That is the moment this story stopped being just a case about a missing child. And that is why what you are about to hear today, you have not heard anywhere else. Write your city in the comments below. I genuinely want to know how far this story has traveled. But before we get to the scandal, we need to go back to the beginning, because without it, you cannot fully understand how monstrous what is happening today truly is. We need to go back to the girl. Madeleine Beth McCann was born on May 12, 2003 in Leicester, England. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and one feature her parents called the most beautiful thing in the world, a coloboma of the right eye. It is a rare condition present from birth, where a dark mark appears on the iris and extends toward the pupil, making it look almost like a keyhole. That feature became the defining detail on missing posters distributed across 40 countries. It was the one thing that was supposed to make her easy to recognize. It is still the only way she could be identified, if she is alive. Her father, Jerry McCann, is a cardiologist. Her mother, Kate McCann, is a general practitioner, a successful, educated British family from the small town of Rothley in Leicestershire. In addition to Madeleine, they had 2 other children, 2-year-old twins, Amelie and Sean. By every measure, it was a happy life, until May 3rd, 2007. After that date, the idea of a happy life ceased to exist for them forever.
Are we going to post it today?
No.
We are.
There's a letter.
Who says uh-huh? Say yes, Daddy.
Yes, Daddy.
Okay.
Oh, we took a very big toys. Santa must open all these toys.
On May 3rd, 2007, the McCann family was staying at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, a small coastal fishing village on the Atlantic in Portugal's Algarve region. It was the last day of their vacation. They were flying home the next morning. Madeleine was 9 days away from turning 4 years old.
Cheer up, Jerry, we're on holiday. Cheer up, Jerry, we're on holiday.
That evening, the McCann family joined a group of friends, 7 adults in total, later referred to by the press as the Tapas 7, for dinner at the resort restaurant. The 3 young McCann children were sleeping in the ground floor apartment, roughly 55 meters away. The adults took turns checking on the kids approximately every 30 to 40 minutes. At 9:05 in the evening, Jerry McCann walked into the apartment and found all 3 children asleep. He noticed the bedroom door was open slightly wider than he had left it. He did not think much of it. He went back to dinner. 55 minutes later, his world fell apart. At 10 o'clock, Kate McCann entered the apartment and found an empty bed. The bedroom window was open. The shutters were raised. Madeleine was gone. Kate ran back to the restaurant, and what she screamed that night echoed across the world by the next morning. She screamed, "They've taken her," not, "She's gone," not, "She's not in her room." She screamed, "They've taken her," as if she already knew, or as if she had already seen something. That single detail would later become one of the things Portuguese investigators examined most closely. Portuguese police arrived and began their inspection. The first thing they documented was the absence of any clear signs of forced entry. No damage to the window frame, no marks on the shutters, no foreign fingerprints on the sill. The window had either opened from the inside or had already been open. Investigators could not establish this conclusively. That was the first contradiction of many that would turn this case into the most complex and painful investigation in modern European history. By the following morning, the photograph of a blonde girl with the mark on her right eye appeared on the front pages of newspapers around the world. Within a week, she was known in 40 countries. David Beckham recorded a video appeal. Pope Benedict XVI received the parents for a private audience at the Vatican. The Find Madeleine website received 65 million visits in 48 hours. No missing child in history had ever become globally known this quickly. And that fact, as terrible as it sounds, became one of the elements that complicated the investigation rather than helped it. The first official suspect was Robert Murad, a British expatriate living near the resort who had volunteered to help as a translator in the first hours after the disappearance. On May 14, 2007, he was declared an arguido, the formal suspect status under Portuguese law. He was questioned. His home was searched. Nothing was found against him. In 2008, his status was lifted, and he received £600,000 in damages from British tabloids that had spent a year publicly destroying his reputation. Theory: a dead end. Meanwhile, one of the friends in the dinner group claimed she had seen a man carrying a child in an alley near the apartment at around 9:15 in the evening. A little girl in pink pajamas. A man walking quickly, not looking back. This figure, known in the investigation as Tanner Man, became the central focus of the case for the next 6 years. Across Europe, police searched for a man carrying a child in pink pajamas for 6 years. And then in October of 2013, Scotland Yard established that the man was an ordinary British tourist who had been carrying his own daughter home from the resort's evening children's club. 6 years of work across multiple police agencies, 6 years chasing the wrong person, 6 years while the real trail went cold. A different sighting, one that had been pushed aside early on, turned out to be far more significant. An Irish family by the name of Smith, a father and several adult children, saw a man on the street at around 10 o'clock in the evening, roughly 460 meters from the McCann apartment. The man was carrying a young girl toward the beach. She was blonde, in light-colored pajamas, and not moving. The man was around 35 years old. Short, dark hair, light-colored trousers, a black leather jacket. He was walking fast. He did not look back. Scotland Yard would later, in 2013, call this sighting the most critical lead in the entire case. That silhouette, moving in that direction at that time, is what investigators now believe was the last moment Madeleine was seen. In the summer of 2007, the Portuguese investigation took a turn that changed everything, and which criminologists around the world still debate today. In late July, British authorities, at the request of their Portuguese counterparts, sent 2 specially trained dogs to Praia da Luz. Eddie, a dog trained to detect the scent of human decomposition, and Keela, a dog trained to locate traces of human blood. Both were handled by Martin Grime of South Yorkshire Police, who by that point had conducted over 200 successful operations without a single documented false alert. The results stunned investigators. Eddie alerted behind the sofa in the living room of the apartment, the exact spot where Jerry McCann said he had pushed the sofa against the wall because the children liked to play there. Then, in the master bedroom near the wardrobe. Then on Madeleine's stuffed toy, Cuddle Cat, a pink plush that Kate McCann had carried with her everywhere since the disappearance and had washed at least once. The scent of decomposition remained even after washing. The dog also alerted on several items of Kate's own clothing. When investigators examined the rental car, a Renault Scenic the family had rented 21 days after the disappearance, both dogs signaled in the trunk. In controlled checks of 9 other vehicles and multiple neighboring apartments in the same complex, not a single alert, 17 signals. All 17 exclusively on the McCann family's belongings and spaces. And here is something I have not been able to stop thinking about. Why is it that in 2020, the moment Christian Bruckner entered this story, those 17 signals quietly disappeared from public conversation? British forensic scientists ran analysis on biological material recovered from behind the sofa and from the trunk. A method called low copy number DNA testing produced a partial match to Madeleine McCann's profile. 15 out of 19 markers, roughly 79%, not enough for a criminal charge under British legal standards.
15 or 16 markers would give you enough evidence to provide a strong pointer that it was more likely to be Madeleine's than somebody unrelated to Madeleine.
But enough that on August 8, 2007, Portuguese prosecutors officially reclassified the case from an abduction investigation to a murder investigation. On September 7, 2007, after 11 hours of questioning at Portuguese police headquarters, both parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, were formally declared official suspects. Kate McCann refused to answer 48 of 49 questions put to her on the advice of her attorney. Among the questions she declined to answer was one the Portuguese investigators considered central: whether she had given the children sedatives to help them sleep more deeply during the adults' evening outings. She did not answer. That silence traveled around the world louder than any spoken word could have. Around that same period, investigators discovered something else. When they searched the villa the McCanns had moved into after leaving the Ocean Club, they found a stack of books and documents on the nightstand on Jerry's side of the bed that had no obvious reason to be there. Among them, specialized law enforcement manuals on missing children investigations from the United States National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, training materials from Britain's Serious Organized Crime Agency, and documents from the Child Exploitation and Online Protection Center, restricted professional materials not available to the general public. The lead Portuguese detective, Gonçalo Amaral, would later describe this as one of the strangest details in the entire case. A father whose daughter had just vanished was already studying police manuals on how to manage exactly this kind of investigation. In July of 2008, the Portuguese Attorney General closed the case. Insufficient evidence to charge anyone. The suspect's status was lifted from both parents. The family returned to their public role as parents searching for their daughter. But the 17 dog alerts, the partial DNA, and the restricted police manuals on the nightstand None of that went away. It simply stopped being talked about loudly. It still hasn't been explained. Christian Bruckner was born in 1976 in Germany and was adopted as a young child. His criminal history began in his teenage years and included theft, drug trafficking, and sexual offenses against children, the first documented case going back to 1994 when he was 18 years old. The man German prosecutors name as Madeleine McCann's killer had been targeting children for 13 years before she disappeared. In the mid-90s, he moved to Portugal and settled in the Algarve region. He lived without a permanent address, moving between temporary locations, living out of a van, sometimes in abandoned structures. For several years, his base was an abandoned property roughly 1 mile from the Ocean Club resort. In 2005, a year and a half before Madeleine vanished, he broke into a rented vacation apartment in Praia da Luz in the middle of the night and sexually assaulted a 72-year-old American tourist. The same resort town, the same method, entering rented accommodation at night. He was convicted of this crime in 2019 and sentenced to 7 years in prison. In 2017, German police first received information linking him to the McCann case. One of his former associates reported disturbing statements Bruckner had made. In June of 2020, German federal prosecutors publicly named him as the prime suspect. Subscribe to the channel. What comes next in this story is something you will not want to miss. Phone data placed a device connected to Bruckner near the Ocean Club on the night of May 3rd into the early hours of May 4th, 2007. The day after Madeleine disappeared, he re-registered his car in the name of an associate, a detail investigators interpreted as an attempt to conceal his movements. There is no physical evidence in the apartment linking him directly. No DNA, no fingerprints, no footage, not one piece. But what was found in Germany in 2016 explains why German prosecutors have not stopped pursuing him despite that. In 2008, 1 year after Madeleine disappeared, Bruckner purchased an abandoned industrial building in the small town of Neuwegersleben in central Germany for £20,000. Why a man with no steady income and no business needed an industrial building in the German countryside, nobody asked at the time. In 2016, a stray dog wandered onto the property. Local police who responded found the body of a dog that had belonged to Bruckner inside the building. When officers began examining the scene, they found a wallet under the animal's body. Inside the wallet, 6 USB drives and 2 memory cards. What German investigators found on those devices has never been fully disclosed to the public. What is known is this: after an initial review of the contents, more than 100 officers were immediately dispatched to conduct a full search of the building. Among the items recovered were children's clothing, including more than 75 swimsuits in various sizes, masks, ropes, chemicals, and firearms. And among the files on the drives, written texts authored by Bruckner himself in the first person, describing the abduction of children with a level of detail and a coldness of tone that initially left investigators unable to determine whether they were reading fantasies or memories. One text described how he drugged a mother and child outside a nursery school and abducted a blonde 4-year-old girl. That text was written in 2008, 1 year after Madeleine disappeared, and had been hidden under a dead dog in a wallet inside a building no one was supposed to find. It is those drives, according to the official statement of the German prosecution, that became the primary reason investigators are convinced Madeleine is dead. Not the phone data, not witness accounts, that. But among everything recovered from that building, there was one more item, an ordinary insurance claim form for a traffic accident. And it was that single piece of paper that, in May of 2025, overturned one of the most important moments in the entire case. For many years, German investigators held the testimony of a man identified in case files as Helga B. According to his account, in the spring of 2008, he ran into Bruckner at a music festival. At some point, the conversation turned to the abduction of a child. Bruckner indicated he knew more about the subject than he should have. When Helge B. expressed surprise that the alleged victim had not screamed or called for help, Bruckner replied quietly, "She didn't scream." He said it calmly, as a fact, and in that same moment, by all accounts, he realized what he had just said. That same night, he disappeared from the festival without saying goodbye to anyone. But for many years, investigators had no documentary proof that Bruckner had even been at that festival. The entire testimony rested on one man's memory until May of 2025. In May of 2025, investigators found that same insurance form from the building in Novigersleben bearing Bruckner's personal signature with a date and location, the same festival, April 2008. For the first time in nearly 20 years, the testimony of a single witness had documentary corroboration. Bruckner had been there, at the same time, in the same place. In criminal law, this is called corroboration, independent verification of testimony, and it was precisely what German prosecutors had been missing for all those years. The German side immediately passed the material to their British counterparts, and that same year, Scotland Yard officers flew personally to Portugal to re-interview witnesses in the case. In December of 2025, the United States Department of Justice began releasing millions of pages of declassified materials connected to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Among hundreds of thousands of documents, one file appeared, labeled EFTA 01249618. A witness statement dated 2009 submitted to the FBI in 2020. A British citizen, whose name is redacted in the document, reported the following. While walking home from a shop in 2009, they found themselves walking behind a woman and a young girl on the street. A middle-aged man was present as well, but walking well ahead of them. As the witness drew closer, they noticed the child's appearance and suddenly thought of Madeleine McCann. At that moment, the woman noticed the witness looking and began nervously rushing the girl along, visibly unsettled by the presence of a stranger nearby. The child turned around several times to look back at the witness. The witness stated the woman resembled Ghislaine Maxwell. This is an official document of the United States Department of Justice, not a forum post, not an anonymous tip. A statement submitted to the Federal Bureau of Investigation that sat in classified archives for 5 years before being declassified. I am not saying this is true. I am saying it exists, that it is official, and that the name Madeleine McCann is now written into the declassified Epstein files permanently. If you think more people should know about this, share this video right now. In February of 2026, Christian Bruckner, already a free man, already in his forest in northern Germany, already with a bracelet on his ankle, sent a statement through his attorney that German media immediately ran on their front pages. He claimed to possess information on storage devices capable of exposing what he himself called the scandal of the century. German prosecutors publicly described this as psychological manipulation, an attempt by a man in a legal corner to create the appearance of leverage he does not have. Perhaps they are right, but Bruckner did not say, "I have an alibi." He did not say, "I know who really did this." He used the word scandal, scandal of the century. That word does not describe one man's personal story. It describes a system. It implies names. It implies something that, if revealed, would destroy someone significant. And in a case that has already crossed paths with the Epstein files, even a probable bluff sounds completely different than it should. Now, about why this man will almost certainly never sit in a courtroom. Not in the United Kingdom, not in Portugal, and possibly not even in Germany. In May of 2026, British politicians publicly demanded his extradition to the United Kingdom. Scotland Yard confirmed its interest in that option. The German side responded immediately and without ambiguity. The German constitution explicitly prohibits the extradition of German citizens to countries outside the European Union. A bilateral extradition treaty between the two countries exists, but Germany retains the sovereign right to block any request, and that is exactly what they will do. If Bruckner ever faces a courtroom at all, it will be a German courtroom, with German prosecutors who themselves acknowledge the direct evidence is not yet sufficient. The same prosecutors who already lost a separate case against him in 2024 when a German court acquitted him on 5 counts of sexual offenses allegedly committed in Portugal. This man lived a mile from the crime scene. He bought an industrial building the year after it happened. He hid texts about abducting blonde little girls under a dead dog. He said the words about a girl who didn't scream. He claims he knows about a scandal of the century, and he is legally untouchable. This is not a crime novel where justice is served in the final chapter. This is the reality of 2026. Today, Operation Grange, the British investigation launched back in 2011, is staffed by 3 people: 1 detective chief inspector, 1 detective constable, 1 civilian staff member. Their annual budget for 2026 to 2027 is £86,000. For comparison, the total cost of the investigation over 15 years has exceeded £13 million. In June of 2025, German and Portuguese investigators conducted a 3-day search operation across 120 acres of land near Lagos with ground-penetrating radar, dozens of officers from 2 countries, at a cost of roughly £300,000. Bone fragments recovered during the search were later confirmed by forensic analysis to be animal remains. The operation concluded without significant findings. Madeleine McCann would have turned 23 years old in May of 2026, if she is alive. Her parents have started every new year the same way, with a statement about hope and gratitude to the officers who continue working. At the turn of 2025 into 2026, they wrote, "May this year bring us the breakthrough we have been waiting for." They have written something like that every year for 18 years. For 18 years, their daughter has looked out from missing posters with that unforgettable gaze, with the dark mark on her right pupil that looks like a keyhole. The only official suspect lives in a German forest, uncharged, legally untouchable, claiming to know about the scandal of the century. A 2025 insurance document confirmed the testimony of a witness who heard him say the words about a girl who didn't scream. A hard drive found under a dead dog holds classified files that convinced German prosecutors, but that are not yet enough for a court. And the name of a 3-year-old girl from Praia da Luz is now written into declassified FBI files alongside the name of Ghislaine Maxwell. This is not the end of the story. This is its darkest and strangest chapter, and it has not been finished yet. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. The next story will be just as explosive and just as important.